Hello, guys. Welcome to the Leftovers After Show. We're here for crazy Whitefella Thinking.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome, guys, to AFTERBUZZ TV for the Leftovers After Show. Oh, yep.
Are you winded, sir?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I could go for hours, man.
Could you? Let's see it.
No.
Now,
We have
right
about
now.
45 minutes for you to prove that right.
All right, yes, I did bring in a didgeridoo that, yes, I own, that I did not, borrow for this specific purpose.
We have so many questions. Yeah. I don't know which follow-up to start with, and we don't have time for any of them.
No, we don't. This was a crazy episode, not just because it was in the title.
Heyo.
Yeah, crazy. Real quick, yes, I visited Australia years ago, and I just, while I was there, I tried this, because, it's one of the things you do when you're in Australia. You try a didgeridoo.
Everyone who goes to Australia tries it?
I would gather if I went to Australia tomorrow, I would try to do.
They are.
Well, now I
They are
would.
everywhere down there. Because it's a huge part of the culture. It's like the equivalent of a Native American drum, let's say. And I just tried it out, and I figured out how to play it pretty quick. So I wanted one, and I bought it.
Dang.
At least you're putting it to use.
Yeah.
So,
Hey,
yeah.
it was worth it for that ridiculous moment. All right, let's dive into this episode. Hey guys, I'm the crazy person playing the didgeridoo, Zach Wilson. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at that Zach Wilson. Real quick, who are you guys?
I'm Roxy Striar. You can find me everywhere at Roxy Striar.
I'm Kelly McInerney. You can find me on everything at Holly Weirdo.
I'm Steve Kaufmann. You can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann. That's Kaufmann.
All right, this was the Kevin Sr. episode where
Yeah.
he just went. This was full blown, just here's what's going on with this guy, and this, to me, this episode changed the game.
Yeah.
Of this series.
Because I think us not knowing about where he was and what he did the entire season 2 led me to assume he was all-knowing and almost like a messiah. Just because that would be easier. In my mind, where it's he went to Australia and figured everything out.
We're at a point where it's hard to ignore the, up until now, everything except the departure has been explainable by normal means. And we're getting a couple things now that are next to impossible to explain away using just logic or science or reason.
I feel like a lot of things have been next to impossible
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Season 2, the hotel thing?
Yeah.
Well, that's the hotel is exactly what this almost everything in the hotel was. You could just write off as the insanity of Kevin's insanity, it was all in his head.
A near-death
this could be
experience for
insanity.
Kevin.
I don't
an
know, waking
unreliable
up in the
narrator.
ground, the bird thing, everything that happened with Matt's wife. I don't think any of that was
Coincidence. People come out of a coma with no, scientists have
People
not been
get
able.
buried alive and are able to wake up 3 days later.
I think you should concede one
wasn't
point. That the Kevin in the ground part would be
It
the
wasn't
first.
it wasn't 3 days. Was
It was a
it?
few
The
days.
bird was 3 days.
Yeah,
Kevin
yeah.
might have been a day or something. He was down there for a long time.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
He was dead.
I hear you though.
yeah.
Also, I'm
But
noticing.
the reason I say this one is hard to ignore is the God's tongue reference. When Kevin Sr. is talking about with Christopher Sunday about he came down to Perth and he had God's tongue. That was exactly what was described and seen in Kevin's vision. Whether he knew by some happenstance that his father was in Australia, that could have been explained, which would have justified. And he knows his dad's crazy, so he thinks his dad might be on drugs, all of that. But the specific of God's tongue in Perth, we just had confirmed. That happened, and Kevin Jr. knew in the hotel that it happened.
It did.
You could explain that, though.
But the opposite of that was I looked in the TV and what did I see? A chicken. as opposed to, and what
That
did
was
I-
a great moment.
What did I see? My son, you know.
Because that's what we saw.
yeah,
The
We saw
chat
you
has
on
our
a
backs.
TV.
It was 8 hours that Kevin was underground.
8 hours.
That's still
an
Yeah.
inhuman amount of time.
Excuse me, don't go there. You're gonna say that's
asleep.
you. Let's start with you, and
But-
let's see if you can make it to the after show next week.
fine.
But not really, because I love you. I don't want to go underground. Maybe the didgeridoo. We'll try it.
See if I can still play
Yeah.
it. All right, but so we know what he was doing in Australia, like what he's been doing down there. This is what I love that we opened on him in the moment of the departure, that chaos, that classy mustache.
Yeah.
This pre him going crazy. But he went down there because he was searching for his purpose.
Well, and also didn't the voices tell him to leave?
Yeah.
Was this anybody? I feel so crazy for saying this out loud. This is one of those things you don't say out loud, you just keep to yourself. But this was the first time that I put this together, that those voices may be of the people who have departed. I have never thought that before. I have always thought that the voices that he was hearing was something else. But when he put it that way, it wasn't until the departure, then I started hearing all these voices, that it was the people who had departed. Did you guys the whole time?
I never thought
I
of
didn't
that.
connect those dots.
That's
No.
a good.
That's the first but I'm also, it's not a pessimist, but as much of an agnostic where I'm like, well, that's a known unknown. Let's stop thinking about it.
I feel you on that, but I thought it was interesting. I don't know if we've ever heard him say exactly what the starting point was as clearly as that, and that was interesting to me, that was something that I had never
Yeah.
put together.
Yeah.
No, I like that too. But the counterpoint would be, well, he experienced trauma like everyone experienced trauma, and maybe schizophrenia that was already there, or mental illness that was already there, boiled to the surface.
Absolutely.
And
Due
it-
to the trauma.
And the idea of a mental illness is only solidified by the fact that his son has a similar effect, which implies a hereditary disease.
Yeah.
So, like, there's
Yes.
Or they're both messiahs.
or they're both messiahs.
Both make as much sense in this world.
Like, I want to talk about like all the. I was just fascinated by like what this episode did with the culture, like the Australian culture, and Kevin Sr. Like what his goal was. So let's track his story here.
Okay.
He gets to Australia. He gets tripped out on acid, some kind of fancy new acid for several
multiple
weeks.
weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes to see.
Which also, if it is mental illness, if it is that path, is not helpful.
No.
And the
Yeah.
one thing that really, really makes your mental illness get
Worse.
that much worse is when you start messing with drugs like this. So the fact that we got into this place, if that's what is going on, not the best call.
yeah.
But aren't they stop? Didn't they stop, or is he ignoring them now? The voices, like when he left.
He's doing what they tell him to.
Yeah.
Oh, he's doing now. I wasn't sure if he meant that like once he left, they were gone.
When he got out of the mental institution, it was because he was better. And
Yeah.
when asked why are you better, he said the voices aren't gone. I just started doing what they told me
Oh,
to.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't know at this point what's exactly happening, but
yeah,
He didn't specify. My assumption would be the voices.
are still there.
They're still there, but I feel like they went away once he went to Australia.
Yeah. That's
Either
what I
which
thought.
which
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
I think they
possibly,
probably
yes.
went away when he spoke with Tony, the chicken.
Tony took the voices from him.
Yeah, well, I think that Tony gave him a purpose, a questionable purpose, and like whether he completely knows what he's doing is also questionable. But the story of Tony the chicken was that an entire village, and it was only I think they said 13 people, but that entire village departed.
14,
The odds
I
of
think, yeah.
And the animals.
the odds of that are astronomical. The animals part is interesting because animals did not depart, but it could just be that they got out and escaped with no people around.
It's not possible that the reason that we heard Grace's story is to warn us about Tony the chicken's story, that maybe not all 14 people did depart.
That's a good point.
Because I just think it's interesting that we've taken it at face value that all these people who have departed have actually departed, and other than Evie, we haven't really, because that was the second departure that didn't actually happen. We haven't really looked into some of these. Maybe they didn't depart?
Yeah, it's true. It's possible.
Well, that's what Nora's for, right? In America, in Texas.
And then you imagine there's probably some equivalent in Australia.
An Aussie Nora
Yeah.
that isn't older.
Yeah.
And actually Nora, just going to
Well,
a different name.
I meant more the agency.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hope that there's just not just like Noras everywhere.
Also, I do just have
Apparently
to.
there are Kevin's police chiefs is everywhere, so
Oh,
there
yeah.
right
That's a
now.
common name.
Nora's common.
Nora's common enough. Anyway, but so he like whether we think this town is like just basically the anti-miracle, because instead of a town where no one disappeared, the entire town vanished. This chicken, the beliefs around this chicken are real.
Just the egg.
Just because it was the only thing there.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, because it was funny on the internet, right around the time they would have been writing this episode, there is a chicken place in Australia who, for a social media stunt, had a chicken hang out on a keyboard about 20, 30 hours a week, and then have it tweet whatever it types in an attempt for the chicken to actually write a word.
How'd that work out?
Yeah.
If you follow this chicken place, which I do, it tweets nonsense all the time, and it's hysterical.
Is one of the things that it tweeted Tony.
No,
Yeah.
it's not that particular. But I think the idea, sometimes it's like you want the chicken to give you all the answers. And
All right, we
sometimes
got a
it's
lot
just
to
the
cover,
chicken.
Steve.
It's
Your
a
Twitter
quick-
following is like we could talk about it later.
Good point, Zach. Good point.
But like he wants some fucking purpose, and the
Yes.
chicken goes for the audio tapes.
Specifically the
Niagara.
Niagara 81.
Do you think that's like too I feel like, do you think Kevin's reaching a little, Senior's reaching a little bit, like, oh, because that chicken pointed at that tape, it
I
means
do.
something? Yeah.
I mean,
It depends on who you are. That's how like purpose and people who have faith say the hardest part about faith is having faith.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on some
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, any of these, like, it's impossible to say who's to say it wasn't fated? Who's to say this wasn't a sign from God or the voices or whatever? Like, his path led him to this moment.
Who's to say that tape wasn't dropped in food and the chicken was hungry and
Yeah.
thought that they smelled something?
Yeah.
But yes.
And like the moment that it was fast forwarded to, that it was sitting on, was Kevin Jr. like worried about the rain, and then his dad singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider until the rain stopped. What do you guys think and which leads him to interpret it as, I have to go down the song line in the Aboriginal song line to get the rain to because the flood is coming and I'm the only one who can save us.
I believe in his mind that was a clear A to B to C. In my mind, that is an A, Q, F, R, B,
Yeah.
C. Like, I have no idea how, if you hear that to me, okay, then spiders. What do spiders have to do with this? I must collect all of these spiders that are in Australia, whatever it is. This is a stretch. This is a big stretch.
Or at least why Aborigine songs? Why not just him singing like how he sang Itsy Bitsy Spider?
Well, because I think his argument would be, the voices told him to go to Australia. He went to Australia and found the chicken. So therefore, the chicken must be mystical because the voices are mystical, and Australia is mystical, so the chicken is mystical, and the chicken told me to do the Make the Rain Go Away song.
Yeah, and this is a story that I have brought up on this show before, but it's a story told amongst Aboriginal cultures, the Rainbow Serpent, and the Rainbow Serpent was this is like it's sort of a creation myth, but the Rainbow Serpent came down to Earth and took the people of Australia up on its back. And it taught I think the idea was that it gave them intelligence. It taught them things about culture, about what to do, and then put them back. people being taken off the earth, obviously on this show has its own specific implications. So I think there is something very specific about Aboriginal culture and the stories that line up with what's happened in this universe.
In the very beginning of this season, I wouldn't be surprised if Perth was the village. Was the village that we saw where the lady was looking, where the family and the village were all trying to go after the flood or trying to protect themselves from the flood. That they're trying to keep you in that cyclical version of maybe this guy's
Well,
right.
Perth is
or
a
maybe
big
it's all,
city.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's not a village. Interesting Easter egg, though. We got the return of the National Geographic from
Yes.
season 1.
Love that.
In that National Geographic is the story of a specific spider that lives under the sea, and like it lives its life underwater, and it does everything down there using like air bubbles to eat, to breathe, and to raise and to like hatch its eggs.
So why is he focusing on the song and not the spider aspect of the song?
I don't know.
Not Geo, spider.
That's what the
Spider.
voices. Maybe the voices are like, just sing, forget about the spider.
And I think the chat's bringing it up too about the idea of Kevin Jr. needed to sing to get out of the hotel. That there's
Yes.
and
Great call.
and singing in general
Home.
and singing in general is more or less tied to theology as humans. That it's you sing to kind of voice your feelings, voice your faith. So I'm stretching because I think it's
really
I think
good
that's a
call.
good-
I think it's a chicken that might be able to tweet a word. That's how I think you can't teach a cat French.
Yeah.
I think a chicken can't give you purpose. That's just me though,
Why can't you teach your cat French?
because it's a cat. It doesn't know English.
I don't agree. You don't know.
I mean, I would argue that why can't you teach a cat French?
That's what I think.
If you can,
That's what I'm
get-
saying, Zach.
if you argue that you can teach a cat or a dog to respond to English, why can't they respond to French?
Just because they can't speak it doesn't mean they don't know it. Heyo.
But if they're already responding to English, do you think you can teach them a separate language?
Yeah, it's just teaching
It's-
new commands.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
sounds,
Yes, I
man.
do.
Lawyer.
All right.
Is that an
Lawyer.
expression or you just made that up?
I've heard that on a couple different TED Talks from scientists trying to explain why as humans we may just be limited to being humans. That's a deeper
buy it.
philosophy
All
for a
right, I
different
don't know
show.
what's happening anymore.
You
Brent,
remember this, Steve, from our
Brent-
previous
yeah.
seasons, though, right?
Yeah, Brent William Henry in the chat, it reminds us that it talks about Australia in that National Geographic.
Yes,
it
it
does.
does.
There's so many.
Yeah.
They like clearly just like have this like pasted in their in the writer's room because there are images from it that have appeared. Like there was a painting of the deer that appeared when Patty died. Like there was there's on the cover there's the riddle of the Minoans, which is a culture like a civilization that just like vanished years ago, and they're trying and like supposedly in that issue they're like new evidence is like revealing what happened to these people that disappeared off the earth.
That's interesting because I feel like we've been looking to the future. Will this happen again? Will this happen again? We don't really look to the past a lot in the show. Has this happened before?
Yeah. We don't know. I mean, that could have been what that could like the Great Flood, Noah's Great Flood, could be a metaphor for a previous departure. And that these are all the questions that lie around this, and why maybe the Bible needed a sequel.
Heyo, I never, when you watch a movie and you're like, I feel like that movie's good. We don't need a part two. Feel like that's with the Bible. We already went New and Old Testament.
Yeah, I was like, hold on, we do have a part two.
The Bible was
Okay.
a sequel.
So we've got 1 and 2. I feel like let's leave 3.
Technically, I think
I mean,
the
there's
Quran
these
is the
trilogies.
part
Well,
3,
some
depending
are-
on your
Okay, so
belief
let's
system.
leave part 4.
Or Book of Mormon
wherever
would
the
be
last
considered-
one was.
Yeah, the Book of Mormon
would be considered
All
part
right, let's
3.
stop it here, though. Let's cut it off at 5 or 6, wherever we're at now.
The Greater Bible Universe is actually a huge franchise.
And is this a commentary? Can we talk about the Bible aspect of it a
Yeah,
little
please.
bit? Is this a commentary on how the Bible was initially made, or is this more talking about now? Because the fact that Kevin Sr. is so insistent on being part of this and it being his story, it makes me wonder, is this show partially saying, like, you guys, when you read this book, you're looking at something where a lot of ego went into
Yeah.
it? Is that part of it, or is
I think
this...
that's a lot of it. That it's, although for it to exist in real life and to talk about actual messiahs is different from my understanding of the Bible, because I think it's only been the past 100, maybe 200 years where people are actually Bible literalists, because everything before that, people took it as just a book. But beyond that, I think it's like people who are writing it and having the input are like, no, I want this, I want that, I want this. Where it's like, nah, man, we just wrote it. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's like when the Bible was written, like, was there a guy that was like, hey, Jesus, I wrote this about you? You know, how
And
they're showing
additionally,
Kevin.
If you were Jesus, how would you
was there
respond to that?
somebody named Abel that was like, oh man, Cain's really pissing me off today. Let's write something rude AF. Like, let's make him look bad.
Yeah.
But, you know, does this come down to us being humans and us all being egotistical in some sort of way or narcissistic in some kind of way? And I'm not saying that in any anti-religious, because you believe what you believe and that's fine. But I wonder about this book. If something like this came out today, how people would react if they really believed this was going on. A lot of interesting questions that this poses.
Yeah. So Kevin Sr., just to clarify, he's been in Australia for like 4-5 years now, right? At least it's been 3 years.
It's been Miracle plus the 3 years,
I think
so
it's
close
4.
to 4 years.
I think we're at 4.
Yeah, so he's been living there. Like they say, he's been down the song line. He's learned every song except the one that he wanted Christopher Sunday to teach him.
Yeah, good old Chris.
Yeah.
Dead old Chris.
R.I.P. We miss you.
That was, I mean, that was the other thing. Like this whole opening with him like recording the song, and then like trying to replicate it and being arrested. It was all just like fascinating. I'm watching it like wide-eyed, like what?
What is law enforcement like in Australia that you can get arrested for that and they just let you go?
Yeah.
It seemed really nice.
But what do you mean by that? Because, all right, the 3 things he was arrested for: appropriation of sacred ceremonies without permission, theft of creation songs, misrepresentation of identity. We're not talking about armed robbery.
Yeah.
We're not talking about intent to distribute. We're not, the things that he's arrested for. What do you mean? What are cops like there?
Well, I'm saying that they never even specified. They never even specified like, well, you posted bail. You have to come back in 3 months to face these charges. It was like, you're good
I understand
now.
what you mean. They brought him in. They arrested him. Like took mug shots. All this. He didn't have ID on him, as we established in the post office.
How do you guys think that in America we treat our homeless people? Because it's pretty similar.
That's fair. I mean, it's just like it's not something they're not gonna waste resources holding him and like.
I guess.
Look at what he looks like and look at what they probably think of him.
I didn't see it. I feel like they would have held him long enough to find out who he was, though.
But like homeless, we don't have songs, creation songs to steal. Here versus there.
It was a very specific crime. It wasn't
Yeah.
urinating in public. It was like, it was cultural theft,
was
which is a very unique thing.
It would be the equivalent to if a homeless person in America started their own church, and then maybe took over an abandoned building and deemed it their church.
And was a squatter?
I guess, but even then,
It's not a
then
perfect analogy, but I understand.
Yeah.
Like,
Like-
it's not there's no perfect thing, but it is like.
I just think it's realistic. I think that if you see somebody that you deem to be crazy, you probably treat them like they're crazy.
Yeah, especially in a world where there's lots of crazy out there,
Especially
and this is a
post-
fairly harmless version of it.
Especially he was like, I'm preventing the apocalypse.
Yeah.
If somebody said that to you, it's kind of.
I love the cop's face though.
Yeah.
When he said and Kevin's face too. I'm preventing the apocalypse. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're just like hanging out. I'm doing stuff.
Yeah.
But would you really, because I agree if somebody said that about the apocalypse today, but if it was post-departure, you probably would take it a little more seriously.
It depends on who said it, I feel like. Like you said, he looked kind of like a homeless guy. So you're like, there's plenty of people that have been rambling about the apocalypse after the departure that are, like the guy on the tower that
Well,
Jesus, Tower Man.
Yeah.
there'd be a really difficult litmus test in that world of like who's just rambling, who's a rambling crazy, and who might actually know what they're talking about. I wouldn't.
I'm just
I can't
still
think of
stuck on
one.
this story. Whose story is it? If it's real, is this also happening to Kevin Sr.? If they had drowned Kevin Sr., would he have been able to come back as well? Or only Kevin Jr., or neither, or both?
Only one way we're gonna find out. Grace, get your horse.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting, just like, all these pieces coming together of what we saw last week with the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
as some of our fans pointed out, and I was like, oh, we didn't even think of that.
I know. I love her. Grace is my new favorite.
That was okay.
That
So
ending scene, dude. Well, you know.
let's
Meryl Streep too. Like,
Yeah.
whoa.
so Kevin like passed out on a cross after like dealing with this snake. To which as soon as he was like, I'm gonna have to eat you, I'm like, I don't think you want to eat a wild snake in Australia, because even if you do kill it and it doesn't bite you, it's still full of venom.
Yeah, I don't think you know enough about snakes right now.
I feel like you could see where the venom is, though. Like, if you chop it up.
I don't know enough about snakes
don't
to
really
figure that
know,
out.
You
but-
think you could see the venom? I don't
feel like-
think of venom that way. I don't think it's like neon green, like we're thinking.
I think it's
maybe.
like dark, isn't it? I don't know.
Are you gonna be able to differentiate that between?
I feel like there's like
Google
a
it.
venom duct or something,
If-
and I don't.
if
know.
I were
maybe
unable-
he really knows every specific breed of snake.
Well,
Australia
he's-
has like the top, like 8 of the top 10 most deadly creatures in the world.
It is his totem, so he might actually know a lot
Yeah.
about snakes.
That's true. And that was an interesting like thing
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't even have time to like think about or research. Like,
Right.
what does that imply that snakes are his totem?
Yeah, good question.
If I didn't have Google, I would not try to eat a snake. If I had Google, I could figure it out.
Do you think they
If
have
you-
service out there, though?
In all fairness, if you had Google, you wouldn't have had to try to eat a snake.
Yeah.
You would have called an
Maps.
Uber.
Yep.
Well, in Australia. Well, that's probably Uber in Australia.
We gotta have some Aussie fans. Is there Uber in Australia?
I'm sure
yeah,
there's
there's
Uber
Uber.
in
There's Uber.
Sydney and,
yeah,
like-
there's Uber everywhere.
No, not in Europe.
It's in a lot of places.
Well,
And
there's
then
a.
they get mad there, and you get kidnapped. Europe, no good for Uber.
Well,
All right, no Uber in Europe.
Unless you have Liam
heard it
Neeson to come and
here
get you.
Do you think we've
first
gotten off
from
topic
Roxy.
or no?
Yes,
No,
very
we're
much
good.
so.
We're totally good. This is the show.
So he like when he passes out on that cross after he does get poisoned, he is saved by like a miracle, whatever you want. Like he after wandering in the open outback, he happened to fall. Like first of all, that ambulance dude is a dick. I know Kevin Senior's being a little crazy, but he more or less sentenced him to die. He kicked him out of an ambulance in the middle of nowhere, Australia, in the middle with heat, with no water, with a broken foot.
Who's to say he wasn't coming back? I'm
Well,
not.
he
I'm not
would've
defending.
said-
I'm not defending the man. I am saying that if he is an Australian who believes in all the things Christopher Sunday says, and got screamed at like that, imagine your beliefs challenged like that on a life or death situation.
More importantly, I have a very, very serious question for all of you. Would you kill a baby if it would cure cancer?
Yeah.
Yes?
Chad,
Who's
I want to know
asking?
your answer too.
Who is asking?
My name is Roxy. We've met before. I'm
All right,
asking.
yes.
It doesn't matter who's asking. The
I don't-
question is out there.
Is it true?
No,
like,
it does matter
It's
because
got, no, it doesn't.
if the person doesn't have the ability to cure cancer, I don't
No,
want to
we're talking
reveal that about myself.
It's a philosophical question. It doesn't
Philosophical.
matter who's asking.
Take it as face value.
Listen, I don't like kids. There's already enough population.
So yes.
I would kill a kid.
The-
I would kill a baby.
The binary answer is yes. The optimal answer is yes.
I mean, my brain wants to say the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. I know it's not yes or no. My question is like, how, like, are we 100% sure? Like, if we're not, but
your
like,
questions are my
Are
questions.
you
No, no, no,
serious?
but like,
You just said he couldn't ask that.
did I?
Yes.
You literally, because my whole
Because
thought
he's
on this
asking,
is
can
that
they actually do it? And you go, it doesn't matter.
I didn't. No.
my-
I was saying. I was responding to your question of who's asking, and that's
Okay, yes,
no,
for sure.
And that's what I'm saying is it doesn't matter like who's like for the question it doesn't matter who, like what physical person is asking.
Okay.
But if
Are they
if
lying?
if
Yeah.
there is if there is proof, then it's hard to say no because one versus
What if it was your baby?
the many. That's even
That's
harder
different.
to answer.
Okay, I think that this question is genius.
Yeah.
But I thought more genius than that was incorporating this with two people who both said no. They wouldn't do it. What does that mean? And why did you light yourself on fire? And who was asking you?
that was my biggest question
what?
was
Who was this guy?
Yeah.
Or was he a mirage?
he could have been a mirage or a hallucination.
That's
But we have to
possible.
assume he actually existed.
Because Think about it. This guy, Kevin Sr., he goes into the car after, he wishes for water, and then it starts to pour. So maybe whatever he needs at the time is presenting it to him. And maybe what he needed was a man to light himself on fire to walk in the other direction. I don't know. Maybe he would have gone one way.
His response, no, I wouldn't. Kevin's response was, no, I wouldn't. And the guy says, that's exactly what I said. And right before he blows himself up, sets himself on fire.
But I'm more, like, in this context, I'm more worried about who they are than the actual question.
Who's they?
Oh,
Exactly.
the people asking the question?
Yeah. Who are they?
It is a philosophical question, Steve.
But if
There's no literal circumstance here.
the man burned himself because he said no, and they didn't choose him.
He didn't say
There's
that's
a
why
they.
he burned himself. There could have been non sequiturs.
I think the implication here is he would save he would save the child, which he thinks to him is the righteous answer, but he wasn't raptured. If that's we assume that he believes, as a lot of people in this world do, that the departure was a rapture. So I think that it was partially him saying, I was on the side of good too, but I wasn't taken. They didn't take me.
That's
But
not
this
being on
seemed-
the side of good. Curing cancer is being on the side
This
of good.
seemed
Is
more
it, though?
immediate.
In the chat, really, really interesting. A couple of people, Malik and Brent, are saying that he was someone who took part in the experiment, potentially the radiation experiment.
That makes the most sense to me.
And so maybe they wouldn't let him go through after asking a series of questions, or maybe they did let him, and this is now what he's become.
If next,
They wouldn't
I have a
take me.
prediction.
Yeah.
They the two.
That's how
That's
it
a cool
felt.
prediction.
Because nobody waits. How long are we from the sudden departure? 10 years. Nobody waits that.
Just shy, 6.5.
Six
We're
and
just
a
shy
half.
of 7.
But no one's waiting that long to then burn. That was a sudden impulse to oh my god! He just drove away from the place that this happened, and decided this is the place I need to just light myself on fire. That was my reading of the scene. That someone just told him, "No, we're not taking you." And given the context we already have, it's either the radiation people or it's different radiation people.
It could have been a job at a hospital. It could have been. We have no idea.
Yeah,
I would
All
like to talk
we could
about
talk
hospital.
more about this guy, but we have to talk about Grace and her compound.
I'm obsessed with her.
Once we get there, she we obviously saw last week and replayed this week the results of her finding the scrawl of the one page of the Book of Kevin, which
This is what happens when you find one page. Imagine what's going to happen when you read the whole freaking book. Everybody's going to be after him.
Well,
I'm just scared.
you could just put
Freaking out, man.
just put a cover on it that kind of says we're people and we wrote it.
Just change the name.
it's not going to be okay. This is The Leftovers.
Yeah. Scary.
And her story, we don't have to go through all the specifics, but her story was heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Gosh.
It hurt, and a great performance.
The best. One of the best I've ever
Eyes.
seen. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then I love the way that we left the episode. You just had the wrong Kevin.
And is he talking about himself or his son?
He's talking about his son.
I think he's going to
Yeah.
be talking about his son.
Yeah.
At this point, I think that he, at this point now, he is going to witness his story. He failed in his journey to complete the song line and to do what he thought was going to be to stop the ark, stop the
Right.
flood,
So
which
now-
also was fascinating because we're gonna talk. Hold on, we're gonna talk about them him happening upon people building an ark. But I do think he's talking about Kevin Jr. because I think he's seeing the
Yeah.
power of his son's story.
Also, she even says a police officer,
A police chief,
Yeah.
which applies
Yeah.
to both of them.
So, yeah.
'Cause
but
he
he's
was a police
reti-
chief.
Yeah, yeah. But not
they-
currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, I've learned this recently about Christianity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are all the same thing. So those are three different things. They were three different things in my mind. They're actually one entity. God, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost are all in the Spirit.
They're all God.
They're
The
all
Holy
one.
Trinity.
They're
The
all
Holy
God.
Trinity, right. Therefore, would Kevin Jr., Kevin Sr., and whatever the Holy Spirit is all be one, and then the book is actually about all three of them?
Maybe.
I was a little surprised that Kevin Sr. was not included, at least as part of the story and the journey of Kevin
But maybe
to this point. But
maybe there is a trinity.
But not every. He could just be another Messiah. Not every Messiah has to be Jesus. I don't know. Like,
yeah, it's not that he's the second coming of Jesus,
That he could
but
just
that
be-
like he is a very
Who are the other messiahs?
well. There aren't
the question
other
is sussing out who's actually a Messiah.
There aren't in Christian scripture. There aren't other messiahs. There are other prophets who either speak with or speak for God. But like you could be arguing that like he is replacing Jesus in like the belief system as the Messiah. That like because they're like according to the Jewish faith, like which like
That's us.
yeah, Jews.
Tribe.
The Messiah has not arrived yet. So it could. So is this the arrival of the Messiah? Is Kevin the arrival of the Messiah? And Jesus was either just a prophet or like to anyone studying at the Church of Kevin, a false Messiah. Like there's all these.
Yeah.
There could be any number of theories about what he represents, what he is doing here on Earth. But like,
Or he could be a cat that just doesn't know French.
If you accept the supernatural elements around Kevin's story, it's hard to say that he is not some kind of spiritual leader or
something.
divine being,
I agree with that.
or a cosmic lens, or
demigod, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
like-
he's something. I thought it was interesting in inside Grace's album. There was a very specific Bible page from Isaiah. It was Isaiah 41, and I looked it up. And at the end of it, it's speaking specifically about Jerusalem and false gods. To this point, and like so, the end of that whole section is just, I look, but there is no one among the gods to give counsel, no one to give answer when I ask them. Isaiah asking the gods, like see, they are false. Their deeds amount to nothing. Their images are but wind and confusion. So like everything else is a false prophet, but the one God or the one Kevin, the other one was false. The Australian Kevin was false. This Kevin is the one.
Which Kevin? Senior?
Junior.
Likely junior.
In my mind, I'm talking about junior.
Got it.
although what we've seen from Kevin Sr. this episode, I wouldn't be shocked if we wound up with next week. I'm it, but it seems less likely because Kevin Jr.'s coming there. But there's a certain level of selfishness. There's a certain level of selfishness and ego to him to say, like, no, I'm the Messiah. I'm everything.
Yeah, to swear at Matt and be
he's
like,
my
I'm not
kid.
fucking in it.
Yeah.
And throws it in the trash.
So, question about Matt for a second.
Yeah.
2 questions, actually. Number 1, when Matt told Kevin Jr. that this was the only copy, was that a lie? Or timeline-wise, was that post him finding out that the copy of his original had been thrown out?
That was a lie. Because
Yeah.
on that same conversation, he said specifically, do not tell Kevin Jr. there's a book about him, which would mean that never gave him the book or told him about the book yet.
So
That
it
would
might
al-
not have been a lie.
And that would also explain why the kid and the wife were
Right,
still there.
I'm with you there, but he doesn't find out until later that it's been thrown out. And at that point, when he knows it's been thrown out, is it after that that he tells Kevin?
There's one.
Actually, no, I guess you're right then. It wasn't a lie. Because he specifically said it's the only copy.
And he asked about it. Like, he threw it out in this episode. Didn't he ask about it? Because
Who?
he gave, Matt asked about it to Kevin Sr. And he's like, oh, I just threw it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's just 2 copies.
But I
He
think
seemed
but,
more
So now there's
concerned.
only 1 copy, unless Michael's been typing one, in
Yeah.
which case there's a million.
but I think but I
Okay.
think the timeline's very clear because Mary and the kid were still there.
Yeah.
And we found out last week that they had went to Mapleton.
Not for the later on conversation when
Yeah.
he walks down and he seems, this is my second question, he seems very ill.
I think he's just depressed.
Yeah.
His wife and child left him.
Okay.
Because everything left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself. Coming out of Matt's mouth. Man. Straight out of Boston. My homie. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah. Oof, that was nuts.
Tough.
Oh my god. So the Ark, this little compound of people No, like they seem to like all whether they are coming from a similar set of facts from somewhere, they believe that a flood is coming as well.
On the 7-year.
Yeah, they're preparing for the oncoming flood, and there's like a genuine like surprise, I think, on both sides when they realize that the other believes it. Like when he walks out and he's like, "You're building an ark." Yeah, like they're like ready to argue, and they'll be like, "What of it?" And he's like, "For the flood." There's like but there's a look on their faces that says like, "Oh, this guy gets it. Like this is a big moment because this guy like that we found happened upon us by accident is totally on board."
Yeah, super confusing though, because who are these people? How do they know Grace? How is everybody related? Is she part of this ark building? What's happening?
I have to think that she is.
I think
It's
she's
her-
absolutely
it's
a
her
part of that.
compound.
Because I think the lady was like, "Oh, the woman of the house will help you instead of the hospital," and I think that's Grace. I think that was Grace.
I also think someone who would drown a police commissioner named Kevin, a police chief named Kevin, based on a piece of paper she found once. Probably also facilitating an arc.
Yeah.
But like I
Right
think
or
thought it was
whether
a
she's
sign.
whether she's right or wrong, I'm saying.
Maybe
Yeah.
she thought it was
That's
a
the
sign,
mind of the
and-
person.
And we know she just did something really bad, but we also know that she's sitting here thinking about putting herself in, about taking herself in and saying that she did it and taking all of the blame and not blaming the other people who also let it happen. So I have to believe there's some good in her. It's an interesting character.
She's amazing
Yeah.
Grace, you know?
I'm so intrigued to see where this goes. Let's do a quick round of predictions as we're running low on time.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
All right, so next week we're gonna jump back over to Kevin Jr. and Nora, who are also now in Australia. What are you guys thinking?
The whole Kevin seeing dead things again, the dead person again. I don't know. I don't think that's what. I think they were trying to set it up so we thought that, but I don't think that's actually going on.
They didn't like show Patty or
Right,
like show
or
someone we know to
anybody.
be dead. I think it's a false.
I think he
flag.
overcame them. He
False
overcame
prophet.
them, and we just kind of saw flashes of it.
But we said like you can tell me anything. No, I can't.
I think in the questionnaire next week, and they're going to leave it vague for us to not know for sure, but I feel in the questionnaire next week, Nora is going to be asked, would you kill a baby? Would you kill a baby to cure cancer for everyone?
I don't think it
In
would
this
be-
questionnaire.
I don't think it would be left unanswered. I think she's going to say yes.
No, but
Yeah, I
I'm
think she
saying
would.
ambiguous of whether that guy was also in the radiation trials.
The trailer seemed to imply. Do you guys think that she is going to involve Kevin in the sting? Because she's like effectively they say the word we heard the word sting. It was so quick. I'm not sure who exactly said it. I think it was Nora. Do you think that?
No, I think Kevin said it's a sting off.
Oh, so
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that would
Kevin-
imply that he's
Yeah.
Kevin's
definitely
definitely going to be involved.
Yes, I believe so. So that will be good because I like when they're on the same team.
And they're going to try to radiate him. He's going to be like, nope, I'm still here.
Is there any way that
like
Nora
that.
meets up with somebody else from her corporation or what the kind of thing she does there? And you know how she's got her however many questions she has to ask people when they depart, go to the families? That one of the questions in Australia on their questionnaire is, would you kill a baby?
That's also possible.
I mean,
it sounds like
a-
she's doing it. I feel like this would be outside of the jurisdiction of who she works for. I think she's going to Australia on her own.
No, I think she's. I don't think she's gonna go behind the backs of her people. Like this is a legitimate like they're chasing down fishing. Like maybe
Yeah.
they don't have international jurisdiction, so it's
She has
but I-
ulterior motives, but I feel like this is something her company would want her to do anyway.
yeah.
Or I
They
guess
are
she would,
operating within the U.S., so she may have.
she would have to
jurisdiction
track
go
the
there.
carrot stick back to the U.S. So even if there's a bunch of talk and Kevin's involved in the sting, Kevin then says, I can't die. I want to be shot by the radiation first, but I only can't die in Miracle, so you all have to go back to Miracle. So now Nora has a reason to bring them all back to the United States, where she actually has jurisdiction.
I feel like we're gonna either see something or it's gonna happen off screen. Like we didn't see her even like book anything. Like she just got the call that told her to go to Australia, and then we saw the conversation. Oh, you're going? I'll go too. I think she calls her office. They check in. There's probably an equivalent to DSD in Australia that they have a cooperation with, and because she is it's not just any person. It's her specifically. She's gonna have cooperation from her counterparts in Australia to chase these people down.
At what point do we meet up? Do Kevin Jr. and Kevin Sr. meet up?
Pretty soon.
Yeah, I think they're gonna at least communicate.
Because Kevin Jr. is going there because he knows Kevin Sr.'s there.
Or because he doesn't.
Do you think
want
it's gonna be next episode? Oh, sorry.
I think it will be very soon.
Yeah.
I think there will be at
I
least
think two.
a
I
touch
think not
base.
at
Yeah, I
next
don't
episode,
think
but the
it's-
one after.
Yeah.
All right. We're out of time,
Yeah,
guys.
sure.
Lots of predictions. I really want to know everything that you guys in the chat at home, whether you're listening, whether you're watching, what you think of this episode. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button or rate us on iTunes. All these things, they help keep us visible so other people can find this so that they can share their theories, because I need more theories because there's only like 5 episodes of this show left,
Which is
and it's getting
wild.
crazy.
Yes.
So please talk to us more about The Leftovers. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @ZachWilson. Send me all your theories, please.
If anybody has ever deserved a thumbs up for an episode, it's the guy who opens it by playing
Opens
freaking
it
Digital.
and closes it. You guys
Yeah.
go.
All right, guys, I'm Roxy Striar. You can find me everywhere at Roxy Striar.
Hey, I'm Kelly McInerney. You can find me everywhere at Holly Weirdo.
And I'm Steve Kaufmann. You can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann, Kaufmann. I'm also doing the Payback After Show in about an hour.
Nailed
Good night.
it.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later. Oh.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.